If you're calling the butler, I'm very partial to tea and muffins. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam. Today we're going to be talking about The Android Invasion, written by Dalek creator Terry Nation, which is his second and last story not to feature the Pepper Potts, and is directed by former Doctor Who showrunner Barry Letts, which is just... what? Well, that's just a crazy but brilliant idea, because Barry Letts is not only a producer, he's also directed some episodes, and to have him direct a story in the Peter Hinchcliffe era is just fascinating. That's the equivalent of, say, Chris Chibnall bringing Stephen Moffat or Russell T Davies back as a writer. Like, you don't really think... it should be easy to do, but you don't really think about it. So, that's pretty cool. So, a lot of elements in terms of behind the scenes, very interesting stuff. This is a 4-part adventure, and I think it gets overlooked a lot. Many people don't really consider it a bad story, though there are some elements the story has been criticised for. But in terms of what people feel about the overall story and how engaged they are, a lot of people's reaction is, it's alright. They watch it, they enjoy it, they forget about it. But I really dig this story. It really captures me, and every time I watch it, I'm just glued to the screen. Though, like I said, there are some issues with the plot, and in this one, there's some pretty big ones. But you get into the story, into the atmosphere and the style of this particular adventure. As I've said before, many of the Tom Baker era stories were inspired by other stories, mainly horror films, like King Kong, The Mummy, which I forgot to mention in my Pyramid of Mars video. What else? We've got like Pterygosaurus, the Loch Ness Monster, and a lot of more stories in the future. This story is inspired by Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And it deals with it's very similar in which there's a plan to replace humans with duplicates to take over the Earth. And Invasion of the Body Snatchers is heavily a politically centered story. Back in the 1950s, it was about the fears of communism and the worries that, like, you don't know what the other person's thinking of. They might want to kill you. Like terrorism and stuff. So it deals with similar themes to that and similar ideas. But here they do something a little bit different, as at the start of the story, we get introduced to this small village that Sarah Jane has already, she's aware of, but it seems to be deserted, only with a few people who shoot with their fingers, which leads to a great line by the Fourth Doctor, in which he says, "Is that finger loaded?" And they slowly discover that all the money is not only just clean, but all dated the same year, the most current year, which we don't get in this story. But last story, it was 1980. We also get a UNIT soldier who seems to be twitching, and he falls off a cliff, only later to be alive and well, and is followed by a group of humans who don't seem to have emotion and start walking around in the pub, sitting down, getting settled, and then when the clock ticks, everybody starts moving and everybody starts acting normal. And the story, part one and majority of part two, the story relies on you not knowing, like the mystery, what's going on and stuff. Though you could see where the problem comes with this. The story is called The Android Invasion. They're robots! It was the title's fault. But, and I guess that's a big problem with what some people have. But I don't think it's that bad, because there is a lot more mystery to just them being robots. For example, why are the robots duplicating people? Who's behind them? What's the end game? So the Doctor and Sarah Jane, they're talking about like what Sarah Jane was doing back before, and she explains that there was a controversy about the Space Defense Division, which is a base near the village, and so the Doctor goes to investigate. We get some pretty cool scenes in which he gets reunited with Benton. No, wait, that comes later. Yeah, and you get like a robot Harry. But at this point they don't know anything yet, and slowly, like, all the unit characters seem to be chasing the Doctor and Sarah for no particularly good reason. And the Doctor slowly escapes and starts heading back, telling Sarah Jane to head back to the TARDIS. And when she heads back in the TARDIS and puts the key into the door, the TARDIS seems to vanish, and she gets attacked by a robot. So that was I believe that's one of the cliffhangers. Pretty decent cliffhanger. Not one of the strongest ones of the Peter Hinchcliffe era, but there you go. And then Sarah Jane gets duplicated. Now, the great thing about this is that if you pay attention throughout the story, you would work it out. But the Doctor kind of plays along with it. For starters, just before the Doctor and Sarah split, the Doctor takes Sarah Jane's scarf. However, when he meets the duplicate, she's got the scarf. And earlier on in the story, the Doctor lends Sarah some ginger beer, to which she says, "No thank you, I absolutely hate this stuff. Only for this android to be drinking it and enjoy it." And as well, this Sarah Jane seems to be the only person to get a telephone working in this village. So, yeah, a lot of great spooky stuff going on. And when the Doctor realises that Sarah is a robot, we get a classic, really iconic cliffhanger. This era is known for its groundbreaking cliffhangers, and this one's no exception, as just as soon as the Doctor works out that Sarah Jane is an android, he pushes her to the floor and her face falls off, revealing a robotic parts inside. Very great cliffhanger. But what's happening here? The Doctor, when he's in the science building, the Space Defense Center, he gets met with seemingly the only person who has some sort of emotions, the only real person. This guy with an eye patch. I can't remember his name, but he's played by the guy from Enemy of the World, who played one of the henchmen, who's just an absolute villainly. I really love this guy. He's a great actor. Sorry if I can't remember his name or his character's name. But anyway, he was an astronaut, and Sarah explains that when she came to the village in the first place, one of the big controversies was this astronaut. He went into space, one of the furthest people to go away from Earth, and something happened and his ship mysteriously disappeared, and it was blamed on meteorites. and destroyed the ship. But in reality, he survived and landed in this strange world in which nobody seems to be acting properly. It also seems that he is working for someone else, as you get a voice crippling coming through the speakers. So yeah, pretty good stuff here. What else can I talk about? So the villains turn out to be these big rhino people, and on the documentary for the DVD, Philip Hinchcliffe said that this story was really good, but what really let it down was these rhino villains. I can't remember their names, but the main one is called Kroll. And Peter Hinchcliffe says that like every time he watches this story and sees the rhino people, he kind of cringes and he feels let down by those monsters, especially the way they look. However, I respectively disagree. I think they look brilliant. They remind me a lot of a rhino version of the Sontarans, especially the masks. Something about them just sticks out. And I like the hunchback look and how they look like brutes. If you look at them, the first thing you'd think is, right, they're really brutish. But they're actually kind of clever. And one of them's like a scientist, like a surgeon, and is a surgeon as well. Imagine one of those doing an operation on you. Christ. And so this astronaut guy is working for him, and they basically explain that they're basically making these humans as replicas, testing them out on this small little replica village, and then when this astronaut then decides to head back to Earth, they will send these androids onto the Earth first, and they will take over. So pretty cool concept and stuff. But one of the great complaints, which totally agree with, it is a really stupid subplot, is the eye patch. Everybody who's seen this story knows what I'm on about. It is a heavily criticised element of this particular story. So what am I on about? This character, the astronaut character, he basically explains that he believes that he was left dead by humanity, and these rhino people fixed him up, and that's why he's working with them, and believed he was betrayed by humanity, so he's working with them. However, the doctor understands that he's been brainwashed, and he later explains that there wasn't a crash. He was completely fine. Go and check. And he looks in the mirror and he takes his eye patch off to reveal that his eye is perfectly normal. What? You're telling me, right, since this operation, which I like to explain as well, they say for 2 long years. He never once, just out of curiosity, looked in the mirror of his own eye. When he washed his face, did he just carefully avoided his eye? If you just took it off, you'd see through it. What? What's a stupid... Yeah, but the idea is that it was for him to show... It was to show that he was being brainwashed, and it was much more of a simpler visual storytelling to be like a part of him that he was believed wasn't fixed when he was being rebuilt actually was perfectly fine. That I get the sentiment of it, but the actual way it's delivered and the way it's put on screen, very weak element to the story. So that bit I do agree with the people's criticisms. So part 1, 2, and 3 are mainly set on this small little village. However, part 4 is when the actual attack takes place. And we get to see Sergeant Benton and Harry Sullivan in their last Doctor Who appearance. Sergeant Benton would return in a straight-to-DVD film, Wartime, and Harry Sullivan would return in some books, not appearing in video form again. So this is their swan song, and it's a really shame because it just seems like just another story with them in. They don't even get like a goodbye Doctor. In fact, Benton's last scene is him being knocked out and somebody commanding that his body be disposed of before the Doctor and Sarah intervene. So we don't even know what happened to Benton. So yeah, that is a bit shame and it's sad. And I think that's one of the elements that people don't like about this story is that for a final story of two of Doctor Who's more likeable characters, they're not like big characters. Like I said, Harry Sullivan has the charm of him is he's just such an average bloke with no huge drama about him. He just goes along for the ride. So I think in that way, it's kind of fitting how he just ends without even saying his last story is just a casual meet and greet with the Doctor. But Benton, I think, deserved a lot better. He's been with the show since the second Doctor era. He appeared as a minor character in The Invasion and then appeared throughout the Jon Pertwee era, becoming one of the most favourable characters of that era. So it is a bit of a shame. However, episode 4 gets some really great moments as we get robot duplicates of the Doctor, and seeing Tom Baker fight himself is just absolutely brilliant. I forgot to mention as well, important to note, is this story introduces his iconic grey costume with his grey jacket, probably one of his most recognisable costumes. So that's where it came from, this story. And the Doctor fights the robot and deactivates all the robots by pressing a button in the space division, as he got one of the scientists to make a machine that will block all the android signal. And I think it sounds stupid when you say it like that, but when you watch the scene, it works, especially when it's all in one room and he's fighting a much stronger evil duplicate of himself. I think it really works, and the Doctor only barely survives as he presses the button. And the freeze frame effect of the robot Doctor lifting a chair about to smite the Doctor is a very great moment, in my opinion. And later on, Sarah Jane goes and saves Harry Sullivan and a unit officer, only for one of the Rhino people to threaten to kill her and all that. And then the Doctor comes in and has a little fight, destroying the Rhino's person's face, killing him. But before that, he gets the gun and shoots the Doctor. And everybody's like, oh, what? Only to be revealed that that was actually the robot duplicate that the Doctor reprogrammed to fight Rhino Man. And that's the end of the story. Overall, I think a lot of people, nobody hates the story. There's no bitter about the story. A lot of people just find it just a meh. It's okay. I'll watch it. I'll enjoy it. But I'll probably forget about it. But I really enjoy it, mainly for that you don't know who to believe atmosphere that's heavily inspired by Invasion of Body Snatchers. But it does have a lot of issues in the writing department. on the DVD documentary, Peter Hinchcliffe and Barry Letts talk about how the scene with the Doctor's duplicate working for him doesn't make any sense because the Doctor turned off all the androids. So how did he get this one to work? And apparently they had a scene to explain it, but they didn't. It wasn't included in the story due to time constraints, and a lot of people complained. For me, I didn't actually have any problem with it. You know, the Doctor's a genius. My thought it was just that he got to turn on this particular machine back on without activating all the others. That was just my reading of it. I didn't actually consider it a goof until watching the documentary. Go watch the documentary on it, it's pretty good. It's narrated by Nicholas Briggs, the voice of the Daleks. Kind of ironic because it's a Terry Nation story. So yeah, pretty fun, great story. I personally really enjoyed it, but I must state for the marathon that a lot of people are a bit meh with this story. So that's the Android invasion. So join me next time where we have a Frankenstein inspired story. We get introduced to the Sisterhoods of Khan. We meet Solomon, the mad scientist, who tries to build a body for the great and old powerful Time Lord. So join me next time for the brain of Mobius. See you then on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da.